Many of us are unlikely to recognize the name Asa as a significant biblical figure. However, King Asa of the Kingdom of Judah had a great reign until the very end of his life. For those unfamiliar with Israeli history, the Kingdom of Israel split into two factions after King Solomon's reign, the northern and southern kingdoms. A lot of the evil rulers came from the northern kingdom, and none of them chose the way of righteousness. Despite the fact that the southern kingdom had its share of terrible kings, which eventually led to its downfall and captivity in Babylon, see Daniel chapter 1, a number of godly leaders emerged throughout its history. For the majority of his life, Asa was one of these. Asa, son of the evil king Abijah, 1 Kings chapter 15, undid many of his father's and evil grandmother's Maacah's reforms. Nonetheless, Asa had a number of flaws that ended his reign after about 3 decades. Let's look at what happened in Asa's life and how we can avoid some of his mistakes on our own. Asa had peace for the first 10 years of his reign, thanks to his father's victory over Jeroboam. During that time, he led a national reformation, purging the land of idolatry and encouraging people to seek the Lord. He also fortified the land by erecting defense cities and assembled a 580,000-man army. Asa was a descendant of David and the third king of Judah's southern kingdom. He did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God. 2 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 2. 1 Kings chapter 15 and 2 Chronicles chapters 14 to 16 contain detailed accounts of Asa's reign. In the 20th year of Jeroboam of Israel's reign, Asa became king of Judah. His father Abijah had done much evil in God's eyes and only reigned for 3 years. Rehoboam, Asa's grandfather, had also done evil in God's eyes. However, King Asa instated reform, removing male shrine prostitutes, cutting down Asherah poles, and even deposing his grandmother from her position as queen mother due to her involvement with Asherah worship. 1 Kings chapter 15 verses 12 to 13. He also deposed his great-grandmother, Maacah, from being queen mother, because she had made a horrid, obscene, vulgar image for the goddess Asherah. Asa cut down her horrid image and burned it by the brook Kidron. 2 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 13. He removed the foreign altars at high places and tore down the pagan pillars, obelisks, memorial stones, and cut to pieces the Asherim, the symbols of the goddess Asherah. Asa also instructed his people to obey the Lord. 2 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 4. And he commanded Judah to seek the Lord God of their fathers, to inquire of him and for him and seek him as a vital necessity, and to observe the law given to Moses and the commandment. Although he did not remove the high places, Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. 1 Kings chapter 15 verse 14. During Asa's reign, Judah was at peace with the surrounding nations for 10 years. 2 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 1. So Abijah slept with his fathers in death, and they buried him in the city of David. And Asa his son became king in his place. The land was at peace for 10 years during his days. In 2 Chronicles chapter 15, a prophet named Azariah tells Asa that if he seeks the Lord, God will be with him. As a result, Asa was encouraged to remove idols and repair the altar at the Lord's temple. He gathered the people to sacrifice to the Lord. They made a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their forefathers, with all their heart and soul. All who refused to seek the Lord, the God of Israel, would be executed, whether small or great, man or woman. They swore an oath to the Lord with loud acclaim, shouting, and trumpets and horns. Because they had declared it sincerely, all of Judah rejoiced over the oath. They decided to seek God with zeal and found him, and as a result, the Lord gave them rest on all sides. 2 Chronicles chapter 15, verses 12 to 15. They entered into a covenant, a solemn agreement, to seek the Lord God of their fathers with all their heart and soul, and that whoever would not seek the Lord God of Israel was to be put to death, whether young or old, man or woman. They swore an oath to the Lord with a loud voice, with jubilant shouting, with trumpets and with horns. All Judah rejoiced over the oath, for they had sworn with all their heart, and had sought him with their whole heart, and he let them find him. So the Lord gave them rest on every side. Asa reinforced the cities, and Judah enjoyed a prosperous period. 2 Chronicles chapter 14, verses 6 and 7. He built fortified cities in Judah, since the land was at rest, and there was no one at war with him in those years, because the Lord had given him rest. So he said to Judah, "Let us build these cities and surround them with walls, towers, gates, and bars to secure the doors. The land is still ours, because we have sought the Lord our God. We have sought him, longing for him with all our heart, and he has given us peace on every side." So they built and prospered. When Zerah the Cushite pushed out to fight Judah, Asa prayed to God for help. Before Asa and Judah, the Lord struck down the Cushites. Asa and his army pursued the Cushites all the way to Gerar. The Cushites fell in large numbers that they were unable to recover. They were crushed before the Lord and his forces. The men of Judah took a great deal of spoils. 2 Chronicles chapter 14, verses 12 and 13. So the Lord struck the Ethiopians with defeat before Asa and Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. Asa and the people who were with him pursued them as far as Gerar, and so many Ethiopians fell that none of them were found alive, for they were destroyed before the Lord and his army, and they carried away a very large amount of spoil. Sadly, Asa made some errors in the 35th year of his rule. When King Baasha of Israel fortified Ramah in order to isolate Judah's territory, Asa signed a pact with King Ben-Hadad of Aram. The pact was successful in stopping Israel, and the Judahites took supplies from Ramah and built up Geba and Mizpah. But God was not pleased with the pact with Aram. See 1 Kings chapter 15 verses 16 to 22 and 2 Chronicles chapter 16 verses 1 to 10. Hanani, the seer, came to Asa and reminded him of how God had defeated the Cushites. He rebuked Asa for putting his trust in Ben-Hadad rather than in God. But instead of repenting of his sin, Asa became enraged, and he began to persecute some of his people. 2 Chronicles chapter 16 verse 10. Then Asa was angry with the seer and put him in prison in the stocks, for he was enraged with him because of this. And at the same time, Asa oppressed some of the people. And for the rest of Asa's rule, his kingdom was at war. In the 39th year of Asa's rule, he developed a serious foot disease, but he relied solely on physicians for assistance rather than on God. 2 Chronicles chapter 16 verse 12. In the 39th year of his reign, Asa developed a disease in his feet. His disease was severe, yet even in his illness he did not seek the Lord, but relied only on the physicians. Asa died in the 41st year of his rule and was buried with high honor. Notwithstanding the less than ideal ending to his rule, Asa is regarded as a good and godly king. Jehoshaphat, his son, succeeded him and ruled for 25 years. Jehoshaphat was also a godly leader who followed in his father's footsteps and sought the Lord. But he also made unwise partnerships with those who did not worship the Lord. 2 Chronicles chapter 19, verses 1-3. Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, returned safely to his palace in Jerusalem. Jehu, the son of Hanani the seer, went out to meet him and said to King Jehoshaphat, "Should you help the ungodly and love those who hate the Lord, and in doing so bring wrath from the Lord on yourself? But there are some good things found in you, for you have removed the Asherim, idols from the land, and you have set your heart to seek God with all your soul's desire." 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verses 31-33. Now Jehoshaphat reigned over Judah. He was 35 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 25 years. His mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi. He walked in the way of his father Asa, and did not depart from it, doing what was right in the sight of the Lord. Only the high places for pagan sacrifices were not removed, for the people had not yet set their hearts firmly on the God of their fathers. The life of King Asa demonstrates to everyone how easily one can stray from the Lord. Asa began his reign with a strong devotion to God, but as time passed, his devotion waned, causing unnecessary complications. Without a doubt, Asa's story takes an unusual turn. In the Bible, we frequently see heroes like Moses and Gideon having a shaky faith at first, which then solidifies as they see the Lord move. However, Asa does the opposite. Despite seeing God's protection against the Ethiopians, he loses faith in the northern kingdom of Israel and turns to foreign aid instead of the Lord. Christians can learn a lot from this ruler, who began with a bang and ended with a foot problem. Number 1. We must complete the entire race successfully. Christians may begin their Christian journey with zeal for God, only to become bitter, selfish, and untrusting of the Lord's promises near the end of their lives. Paul commands us to run the race of our Christian journey well. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 24-27. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it, and everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I preach to others, I myself should become disqualified. Although you want to maintain a consistent pace on each leg of a race, a runner will sprint to the finish line, giving every ounce of energy they have left to finish well. We cannot become complacent in our race, no matter how difficult life becomes, or how aging takes its toll. Number 2. We need to rely on God alone. Asa is not the only king to face criticism for relying on foreign aid. Read about Hezekiah and Jehoiakim, for instance. Yes, God places circumstances, people, and opportunities in our paths, but we cannot rely on them to save us. This appears differently for each person. God can often take away whatever we want to use as a crutch in order for us to lean more into His plan. Some people place an undue emphasis on money and finances. Others may seek advice from a friend before seeking the Lord's counsel. Whatever crutch we use, we must avoid Asa's actions. We cannot rely on others, especially those who do not know Christ, to save us. Number 3. We don't have to repeat the mistakes of our family. Luke chapter 22, verses 54-62. Having arrested him, they led him and brought him into the high priest's house. But Peter, followed at a distance. Now when they had kindled a fire in the midst of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. And a certain servant girl, seeing him as he sat by the fire, looked intently at him and said, "This man was also with him." But he denied him, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." And after a little while, another saw him and said, "You also are of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Then after an hour had passed, another confidently affirmed, saying, "Surely this fellow also was with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are saying." Immediately while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." So Peter went out and wept bitterly. Although we do like to harp on the mistakes of people in the Bible, for instance, only remembering Peter for denying Christ and David for cheating with Bathsheba, 2 Samuel chapter 11, Asa does do a lot of good during his reign, thanks to relying on the Lord. He started from the bottom. Both his grandmother and father had tainted the kingdom, and if he followed the pattern that we see so frequently with Israel's kings, he would walk in their footsteps. Instead, he destroys the land's evil idols and institutes religious reforms. He ends his family's legacy and begins a new one. We can learn a lot from this man from Judah's southern kingdom. Asa teaches us to finish our races well, to rely solely on God, and to never use our family history as an excuse for bad behavior. Many Christians come from broken homes or backgrounds, but God is greater than any circumstance in their lives, and through Him, we can bring His light to a large number of people who are in need of hope and joy.